Hey Jackals, if you've watched FIFA World Cup, you've probably seen this intro, and what stood out to me was this spinning animation, and that's what we'll do today. But I'll add my own spin to it. That looks something like this. Now let's get digital. So as you know, and if you don't, go to the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition, you can give it a name, you can change the duration, I'll just leave it as is. Make it, put it onto the timeline, you can now extend it, but before you do, you need a video clip, and in this case, because it's FIFA World Cup, I'll use this one, put it over the fusion composition so that you will have the same length. Or just cut the clip where you want it to cut, if that's what you need, and then adjust the fusion composition. You can now delete this clip and go into the fusion page. Now that is how I like to do things, but you could also just put the clip onto a timeline, cut it, select it, and go into the fusion page. And you'll have the media in already in, but because that is not how I did it, when I go into the fusion page, I don't have a media in, so I have to go to the media pool and put the clip inside. Now I'll simply connect it to the media out, put it all the way to the right, and now let's start making the fusion composition. We need to put this image on a box, so we'll be using the shape 3D node, we need to render it out, and we'll put all of the other nodes in between. But for now, let's just connect it like so. Now if I display this 3D space, it will look a bit off, and that's because this is a plane. So in the shape 3D node, we can change this to a cube. And it will look the same because it has the same shape. But because this is a 3D space, we also need to have some camera position, so I'll add a camera, and I want to have a merge 3D node. So with the merge 3D selected, I'll press 1 to display it on the left side, and I'll select the camera now and move it out. Maybe something like this. Now what I'll do is go to the shape 3D node, transform, and I'll adjust the scale. Maybe something like this. Now if I zoom in on the left view, this is the shape that we have. So the z-axis should be smaller, maybe something like this. Okay? So now what we need to do, or what we want, is to bend this shape. And to bend it, we have a bender node. So let's simply bend it, adjust the amount. It doesn't bend in the direction that I want, so select X. This is a bit better, still not what I want, but we actually have to use the X axis. So we'll adjust the bend later, but what we have to do is flip it. So I'll use a transform node, control space or shift space to open the select tools, and we'll basically adjust the rotation. And rotation has to be on the X axis at -90. If you want this bend to be to the inside. Now the shape is a little bit off, so we have to go back to the shape 3D node in the transform, and we'll be adjusting the scale. So the X value stays, but the Y and the Z are different, and we have to adjust the Z axis. So now it still looks the same in this view, but in the 3D space we have a bend. Now we made the screen, but we need multiple of them. So I'll add a duplicate node, duplicate 3D, because this is a 3D space. If you use the 2D one, you won't be able to connect it. How many copies? Well, that will depend, maybe 8. And we'll adjust the rotation. Now in this case, we have to adjust the Y rotation. As you can see, it doesn't look the best, and that's because we have to adjust the pivot point, because currently it's spinning around the center. And because this screen has a diameter of something, we don't know what, depending on the bend that you make, this circle would maybe actually look like this. So the pivot point that it has to rotate around has to be somewhere like here, maybe. So in the pivot, let's adjust the Z value, so we get a nice looking shape. So maybe I'll use -3, so it's a full value. And now we have this whole composition, And to make it rotate, we'll use another transform 3D node. We'll adjust the pivot to be the same value as we used in the duplicate node, so -3. And now we can animate the Y value. Now this screen will be moving slow, and we actually also have some overlapping. And why is that? Well, in the duplicate node, I've adjusted this incorrectly. So we have, this is basically an angle, so 360 divided by 8, because I have 8 copies, so it has to be at 45 degrees. If you use more copies or less, just divide 360 by the number of copies that you have. And now in the transform, I'll simply go to start, keyframe this, go to the end. So the clip cuts at this point. Let's see what could be the issue. Go to the media in, and you'll see at the top global in out. Mine is set to 340, so after this frame, the image disappears. So just drag this all the way until the end of the fusion composition. If the clip is long enough, that is. And now I'll simply go to the end and animate maybe 60 degrees. So this will be moving slowly. And maybe this is a little bit slow, so I'll use 120. Now what bothers me, and it's not the same as it was in the FIFA intro, if I zoom in, you can see that you have an image on all sides of this shape. And I don't want that on the sides of the shape. I only want the image to be on the inside and on the outside. So outside and inside. I'll simply copy the whole composition that I've made here. I don't need anything as an input. I could use maybe a background, but I can simply go to the shape 3D and change the material. And this will be the color of the edge. So like that, connect it. Now currently what is happening is that this is on top of this one. So you have two options depending on what you want to do. You will go to the first shape 3D node, which has the image, go to the transform, and what you want to do is to offset the Y translation by a tiny bit. So the image will be in the front. Now if you do this, you won't have any image in the back, as you can see. And how you can fix this issue is to simply scale the Y axis. So if you want the image also in the back, you can do it like this. And now to fix this mess at the top, we'll simply go to the bottom shape 3D node and scale the X and Z axis. And if you want a big edge, simply scale it a bit more. I think this looks nice, so I'll leave it as is. Now what I have also done is faded the back elements, and to do that I've used the background node. I've used a 3D plane, image plane 3D, so we can connect the background to the image plane 3D, displaying it on the left. It's just a black background in the 3D space. We'll now want to connect it to a new merge node, like this. If I display it on the left, it will be like so. And now in the image plane 3D, we'll simply scale the rectangle up, and you can scale it by individual axis, and we'll also have to change the position, as you can see, so we have to put it somewhere in the middle. In my case, the X value of 5 is not enough, so I'll simply type a higher value and adjust it. Now the edges are sharp, so what I'll do is go to the background node, select gradient, click 4 times or 2 times, so I have 4 points. I'll make it so all of them are black, and the last node and the first node, I'll set the alpha to 0. So now we have a soft transition on the edges. We'll want to render this out separately, so we have this whole composition, which looks like this, but we'll want to mask it out with this. So I'll simply connect this node as a mask here. And now if I display it, this is what we see. So now that we have this, we can't actually see anything that's behind. And to fix this, go to the image plane, material, and lower the alpha. Maybe 0.6. That looks okay. you could always adjust the value to what you want. And now the last thing that we need is the fast spinning images. I'll simply copy the first composition again, paste it in. This time I will use the media in, but I'll also add some scan lines. So control space, scan lines, connect it. Let's see what we have. And why do we need the scan lines in the beginning? Well, if you use it in the end, then the scan lines will apply to this whole composition. But if you apply it to the individual clip, they will always look the same, even though we then make the bend. But if you apply the scan lines at the end, this will look, well, different. Let me just show you. As you can see, the lines just go horizontally, so they get cut off. So that is why we want to apply the scan lines in the beginning, before we do all of the bending. So maybe like this. We can also adjust the width if you want to. I won't be applying this edge. I just want this to move fast. So in the transform, because this is an animation as well, we have the start, but the end will go in the opposite direction. So I'll use minus, and maybe I'll use minus 2000. And then you may want to apply some blur in the render node. Let's first display it. Go to the middle position, settings, motion blur, and you can set the quality. I'll just leave it to the default value so it renders fast. And then to combine this, we'll simply combine it with the merge node. This blurry effect has to be in the front, but what I'll do is change the apply mode to lighten, and I'll also change the blend to 0.8. And now we still have one issue, and that is we don't have the same size. How can we fix that? Well, we'll simply use this camera on this composition. So now both of these compositions are viewed from the same camera. So that is why these two compositions are now lined up. Now this is basically done. We would just need to render this out. But what I also want to show you is how you can change the shapes. Go to the shape 3D node and change it from cube to a cylinder. This will be a little bit different, so let me just display this node. So first what we'll want to do, if you want this to be a cube, is to change the base subdivisions. So this is what my intro showed. I started with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, and anything after that just starts looking like an ellipse. So let's go with 3 sides. As you can see, we now have to do something else, and that something else is displaying the top and displaying the bottom. And then for this one, we'll do the same. Change it to a cylinder, minimum sides. Let's also enable the bottom and top. And in the transform, let's adjust the size. So maybe something like this. Now, if I look from the top, now in this case, we don't have a lot of bending going on, and that's because we only have 3 edges. If I increase this number, let's see how this would look like. It does start to bend, as you can see. Now in this case, we have an overlapping issue, so we could adjust the size, make this smaller, or we could also adjust the position, and maybe also adjust the pivot point if we needed to. And one last thing, now we just have this animation moving in a static position, so you can go to the camera, go to the transform, click on use target, adjust the target position where you want the camera to move around, and then you can simply keyframe the translation and also the rotation if you want to, and start moving the camera around, and as you can see, it will follow the center position. And if we get a cut like this, we can simply adjust the scale in the image plane 3D and adjust the y-axis so you don't have any issues. And to smooth out the animation, go to the spline, click on the 3 dots and enable show only the selected tools. So you see only the selected tool enabled. In this case, I've animated the camera so I can select all of these options. I'll simply select all, click zoom to fit, select all of the points, and press S to smooth the animation out. Now all that's left to do is go into the edit page and wait for this to render out. Now if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification icon so you know when my next video comes out. I'm Simon, and until next time jackals, keep it digital.